And it was set up because PG-13, playoff P, Paul George, 7.2 seconds left at the free throw line, a career 84.7% shooter who was shooting 86.8% from the free throw line this year, who never misses two free throws, never misses two free throws. Pick that moment to miss two free throws. Wow.
Yeah, so what the media is saying about Paul George, it's rightfully so that he gets criticism, but I don't want to say he should get all the criticism for, the Clippers losing the game last night. The Clippers had an opportunity to steal a game once again, just like they did the first game. And, they came up short, and that happens, and we shouldn't really, hold everything against Paul George, but I definitely understand why. Because if you're the star, if you're the guy of the team now that Kawhi's gone, or not around at the moment, at least, you have to be accountable for, what happens. Because when they win or when they won, the last couple of games, against Utah, Paul George got the credit, even though I think Terrence Mann was really the sole reason why they won Game 6. And that's just my opinion there. But, you get the credit when you're the star player. You do, because it's the things that you do that should be the reason why the team wins. The little things and the big things that you can do that other players can't. So I understand that. In this situation, if I had to, go percentages, I would say Paul George should get 75% of the blame, because even though I know that's a lot, but I think a superstar definitely should get somewhere around that percentage of blame because, as good as Paul George played down the stretch in the fourth quarter, got them the lead 103, 102, the two free throws really, really hurt. And, everybody knows when you're playing playoff basketball, when you're playing it at a high level, the free throws is what really counts more than anything. Because if you think about it, a lot of games come down to free throws. A lot of games come down to the last second in the playoffs. A lot of games come down to, who wants it more and who's more composed under pressure. And when we say composed under pressure, that's when you have to implement free throws, because that's where a lot of players that we've seen throughout the years of watching basketball have folded at the free throw line, because the free throw line is more pressure than any other shot on the court, because everybody's watching you. If you're the away team, everybody's rooting against you, and everybody's hoping that you miss while your team is hoping that you make it. And if you're the home team, of course, everybody gets quiet in the arena hoping that you make the shot because they expect you to give you the concentration to do so. But when you don't make them, of course, usually the team who shoots worse free throws in a game that's tight, that's really close, usually loses the game most of the time, or should I say some to a lot of the time. And it's a situation with Paul George where you lost the game in most people's eyes, because if you hit 1 out of 2, more than likely it probably goes into maybe overtime, if they score, because they didn't have much time left to score. So, and then if you hit, 2 free throws, now you're up by 3, and they will have to draw up a play for a 3-point shot to go in, which I'm not sure they would have, made that happen. But, hey, who knows? Monty Williams is a good coach. He can come up with a lot of different schemes and, different plays. The play that he drew up for DeAndre Ayton in 0.9 seconds was, that was genius. And that's all that you could say. That was a really good play to call. That might have been the first time they actually used that play, but it doesn't matter. It worked when they needed it to. And that's my thing. If it's all about, making it work when it needs to work, and that's what they did, so, kudos to the Suns. They did what they had to do. And it was a tight game, very tightly contested, close game, and came down to the wire, exactly how we expect playoff games to be. And that's what happened. But I understand why the media might be looking at Paul George, and blaming him a lot for the game. But it's, I don't want to say it's all Paul George's fault, because, there's a lot of things that happen in the game that, could have helped the Clippers win. I will say this, though. Paul George needs to be more efficient. He needs to definitely take more higher quality shots and stop settling for jumpers when your jump shot isn't falling. I've said before, the only way they're going to beat this team is if they get more aggressive by going in the paint, because they're going to have to find a way to get DeAndre Ayton in foul trouble. If DeAndre Ayton is out there, you're not putting no pressure on him defensively, getting him in foul trouble possibly. It's going to be hard for the Clippers to get out this series, because he's a monster in the paint. And like I said in my previous videos, DeAndre Ayton is not like Rudy Gobert and Boban and Kristaps Porzingis in the other 2 rounds that the Clippers played. He moves his feet a lot better. He can actually guard and go out to the perimeter a lot better than Rudy Gobert and other big men. I actually think he's probably the best old school type big man in the NBA, maybe besides Joel Embiid. But to me, Ayton is a little bit more athletic, I would say, and he's a little bit more like mobile. He can move a little bit better, and the fact that Ayton actually has a 17-foot jump shot that he can actually use, that's just a weapon that the Suns have that, most teams don't. And this is what I'm saying. If Paul George is not going to be aggressive, the rest of the team is probably not going to be as aggressive, because when you're the star player, they go as you go. And if they see you taking jumpers, just shooting, standing back, shooting, then that's what the rest of the team is going to do, because they follow their leader. And Paul George is one of their leaders. Him and Kawhi Leonard are their leaders. Kawhi's not there. So, Paul George has to, take onus, and he has to be better. And if they plan on winning game 3, which they have no choice but to win game 3, because they're definitely probably not going to win 4 straight against the Phoenix Suns, with all the firepower they have and the defensive mentality that they have, and the, having DeAndre Ayton out there as well, it's going to be really tough. So, I hope that, Paul George finds a way to be more efficient, not only keep the naysayers and the media off his back, but, allow his own self to have the confidence in himself to play the way he's supposed to and play at a high level. Because if he's doing that, I'm telling you, the Clippers will definitely have a better shot of winning game 3 and putting themselves in position to, try to make a run to get back in this series. Because I'm not sure if Kawhi is coming back. We don't know. The Clippers are being really, really secretive about him. And that's probably definitely, Kawhi's wishes, of course, because Kawhi is a very secretive guy. We all know that. But at the same time, it's at a point now where, they're going to have to play a little bit more sound on defense. They can't let the Suns get anything they want. Devin Booker gets anywhere he wants on the court. Now, this last game, don't get me wrong, Patrick Beverley played him really good. Patrick Beverley, really, stood out. But the only problem with Patrick Beverley is he plays him really good defensively. But if Patrick Beverley isn't knocking down, let's say, his 3-point shot like he did this game, like this past game, he took 4 threes and knocked down 2. If Patrick Beverley is going to give you production on the offensive end along with the defense, then the Clippers got something going. But if Patrick Beverley is just going to try to lock up Devin Booker and take him away and don't score on the offensive end for the Clippers, well, that's not probably going to be a good thing, because now you're only getting scoring out of 4 players on the court and 1 guy is missing, basically. So, really, it's, having him in there is a good thing. But at the same time, You got to be able to get production out of him too. And like I said, the last game, this past game, he gave production, so that was good. But you can't rely on just that. It's other things too. Other players got to play better defensively, and Marcus Morris is going to have to show up if he's going to play. If he's not going to play, then that's it's okay. But at the same time, my thing is this. When I look at the Clippers, they're going to have to really, really buckle down. They're really going to have to make some better adjustments in regards to what mistakes that they've been making the last couple of games. Because to me, the biggest glaring mistake that I see with the Clippers is you're falling in love with the jump shot too much. I'm looking at Phoenix. They're running better plays. They're getting more twos while you're settling for threes. And don't get me wrong, the threes are keeping the Clippers in the game. But back to Paul George. You're the leader of the team right now, and you're one of the leaders of the team, and they go how you go. And when I look at Paul George, I'm not seeing aggressiveness. I'm not seeing him play to the level that he should. I'm not seeing him be efficient, and I'm not seeing him, take over these games the way I feel like he can. Instead of scoring 10 points in the fourth quarter, which is good, but why don't you start off a little bit better in the game? Get yourself going. Make the defense respect what you're doing from start to finish. Because you can't just have one good quarter against the Phoenix Suns. I mean, the Phoenix Suns they're proving that. They're proving that highly. Because Paul George, the last two games, he's had 9-10 point quarters, in the fourth quarter. He played really good. But at the same time, might be a little too late if you're going to keep doing it that way. In the last couple games, it has been. And this is what I'm saying. Paul George just needs to be more aggressive, and the team will follow him. I don't need to see him shooting jumpers all the time when he can get to the free throw line. Now, hopefully, he doesn't have his free throw demons in his mentality, because last night's game, he went 5 for 10. From the free throw line. And I feel like that was really, really bad, because everybody else on the Clippers shot really well from the free throw line. But one of your leaders shot the worst. Paul George last night goes 1 for 8 from the 3-point line. And everybody else, Patrick Beverley, Luke Kennard, Reggie Jackson, everybody else shot pretty adequate from the 3-point line, except their leader, one of their leaders, Paul George. And it's like, if you're the guy, the go-to guy, you've got to be more efficient, and you got to lead by example. And this is the reason why the media gives playoff P such a hard time, because of games like this. You knew that you needed this game, and this is not the game for Paul George to struggle. This was the game for Paul George to step up and play his best basketball, because everybody knows the Clippers didn't need to go down 0-2 for a third time. But this is the predicament they're in. This is what they're used to. Everybody's sitting there saying, oh, it should be fine. But what people not realizing is this team is different. This team is tougher. This team is better than the other two teams that the Clippers played. And the other two times, the Clippers wouldn't even probably made it out those series if it wasn't for Kawhi Leonard. Because I can specifically say the first round, if it wasn't for Kawhi Leonard's 45-point game, 28-point game, almost having the game he almost had the triple-double in, and I just don't know. Then the game 30, when Dallas was up 30-11, he was on a rampage. Then Paul George followed him and had a great second quarter. And, it went that way. But if it wasn't for that 45-point game by Kawhi Leonard in Game 6 in Dallas, we wouldn't even be talking about the Clippers probably. Because Dallas would probably already been in one that Dallas would be in the position the Clippers are in right now. Or maybe Utah. But what I'm saying is you're down 0-2 without your best player. So if that's the case, that means your second best player has to play really well. He has to play like the best player on the team right now, because he's all they got. He's got, of course, the Clippers got a lot of depth and a lot of other players and this, things like that. But it comes down to your stars sometime, and stars shine the brightest And that's what this series is going to come down to. You can get you got to get contribution from Reggie Jackson. You got to get contribution from Marcus Morris. You got to have a second and third guy, but your number one guy has to look like and play like a number one. And to me, for the most part, last night's game up until several minutes in the fourth quarter, Paul George didn't look like the number one guy. There was times last night where Reggie Jackson looked like the number one guy. And this is what I'm saying. You can't have that type of system playing a team like Phoenix, especially now that the report comes out today that Chris Paul is going to come back. So, I mean, I don't wish any slander on playoff PG-13, but he's going to have to play with more of an edge. He's going to have to play with more intensity. He's going to have to play more efficient. That's just the way it is. And he's going to have to be at his best, because this game 3, it is game 7. There's no other way to look at it. But hey, this is my take on it. Let me know what you think about any comments that I've made today on my take, and let me know what you think in the comment section, and we can talk about it like always. And Cali out.